When Hampshire College announced earlier this year that it would not admit a full class this fall and that they were seeking to partner with another institution to help ensure their financial stability, students, faculty, and alumni were concerned. The concern has only grown after the layoff of 9 staff members in February. Recently, Hampshire College President Miriam Nelson announced the creation of 2 committees to assist the board in moving forward to secure Hampshire's future. One of these is the Hampshire Options Working Group, which includes perhaps its most famous alumnus, filmmaker Ken Burns. Hampshire College historian Ken Rosenthal, who is one of the college's founders, is also a member of that group, and he sat down with Carolee McGrath in the studio to discuss the college's future.
We're a group of 8 who are not intimately involved in the day-to-day activities of the college. All of us have Hampshire College connections. About 6 of us, I think, were alums of Hampshire College, a couple of us parents. I'm a Hampshire College parent. I also worked at Hampshire College for 10 years back in the 60s and 70s. And our mission is not to create ideas and develop plans, but to vet them, to evaluate proposals that come to the college for how it should be moving forward.
Now, I know that there was a letter that was released today based on the meeting that you had recently talking about the financial trouble, and that it was just, pretty stark when you really looked at the numbers. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about, how that first meeting went. Well,
the first meeting was really a get acquainted meeting, and a meeting in which we were preparing to know how we were going to evaluate proposals that came before us. And there essentially are going to be 4 or so proposals, I think, but it's too early to be sure. There are probably going to be a couple that involve strategic partnerships. That's a definition that's yet to be made, and we do not know who those partners might be. So we're just talking concepts now, but not specifics. And there will be 1 or 2 other proposals for how the college might retain its autonomy, remain independent in the future. And of course, some of these may be proposals that can be married together and work together, and we just don't know that.
So obviously, with the news, with layoffs being announced and with fewer freshmen being admitted in the fall, it's upsetting, for parents. And it must be frustrating, for you as somebody who went to Hampshire College. You were one of the founders of the college. I'm sure you can identify with people who are, obviously bothered and worried about this.
Hampshire College was never intended to be a place that didn't change. Hampshire came about because of the need for change in higher education. It was created by Amherst, Smith, Mount Holyoke colleges, and the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, who wanted to do things a little differently than they might have been doing in the past. This was back in the 50s and 60s, but who also were so successful that it was very hard to change. And they asked a new college to think about the changes that could come about in higher education. And just as Hampshire College did that back in the 60s, one of the things that the first president of Hampshire College said is that we should think of Hampshire College as a place of successive approximations. Big words, but what that meant was that Hampshire should be very comfortable in reimagining itself every once in a while to see how we could not only do better what it did, but also see what higher education needed so that it could be a model for higher education.
And what would you say the reasons are leading up to this? Because I know, of course, other colleges have closed down and people have been concerned about that as well. How does Hampshire College and other colleges get to this point?
Well, for a college like Hampshire, which is a national college but draws more of its students from the New England area than other areas, the demographic change in New England, in which there are fewer students coming out of high school getting ready to go to college now, puts pressure on every New England college. So that's not just a Hampshire College circumstance, but that's a circumstance for everybody. Also, the need to prepare people for jobs that don't exist now, which always was true with liberal arts colleges, is more of a challenge for a Hampshire College now than ever before. But that, in a way, speaks to why Hampshire College can really make a contribution, because this is what Hampshire College has been doing for all of its life. It's been helping people to be prepared for jobs that they may not even know they're interested in. For instance, more people graduate from Hampshire College in the sciences than come to Hampshire College intending to be in the sciences. When they get to Hampshire, they learn that science is something they love. When you see Hampshire College, you realize that this is not a college of high-tech resources for scientists, but it asks them and helps them ask the right questions so they can become good scientists when they leave. Another thing about Hampshire College that's important is that it is a place of entrepreneurial thinking, not necessarily business entrepreneurial, but just creative thinking. So that the National Science Foundation, for instance, says that Hampshire College is in the top 3% of colleges that send their graduates on to get advanced degrees in the sciences. And in addition, of course, they become lawyers and doctors as well as business people and teachers. Hampshire has really helped in the past its students to become those kinds of people, and there's still a role for Hampshire College now.
And would that have to change at all as you look at proposals on how to sustain it in the future?
How you do it will probably change. What you're trying to do won't change, because the more I read about the new worlds we're going to be living in the next 10 and 20 years, the jobs that are going to be created don't exist now. And Hampshire students and Hampshire graduates need to be able to adapt to that. One of the interesting things about Hampshire College is that it doesn't offer grades, but it offers evaluations, just like the real world. Carolee, you don't get a grade at the end of the year. You probably talk to a supervisor who helps you understand what you did well and what you can do better the next year. And that's how Hampshire College students are treated by their faculty.
Right, although people have criticized that, certainly, that what do you mean you don't get grades? And have sort of said, that makes, obviously, you have your own identity at Hampshire College as well.
You do, and what you learn is how you can be better. A grade doesn't tell you that. One of the worries we had at Hampshire College when we started was whether graduate schools, medical schools, law schools, or employers would accept the fact that we couldn't tell you where in the class you stood and what your grades were. Well, it turns out that the evaluations that they get from Hampshire professors about the students tell them more about the students than simple grades or simple examination records tell. And of course, in every college, half the students, if you're ranking them, are in the bottom half of the class. Even the best colleges have half the students being in the bottom half of the class. There's no bottom half at Hampshire College. Every student graduates from Hampshire College with a portfolio of his or her accomplishments, together with the evaluations of the professors that he or she has had during the time at Hampshire.
Now, even if you find a strategic partner or another way, to move the college forward, when you look at different colleges that have closed recently in Massachusetts, Mount Ida was one of them, Newbury is another. How do you deal with the perception problem and the reputation, and convince parents that, if this all works out, which obviously you're working towards, that Hampshire College is worth taking a risk on?
Well, you put your finger on a real challenge. That's very hard to do. But it's been interesting to me to find how much attention Hampshire has received in the press and from alumni around the country. The New York Times has written about Hampshire College, the Washington Post, Nation, the Atlantic. Hampshire College apparently, probably more than Hampshire even knew, had a reputation beyond its small size and its location in western Massachusetts. So what we have to do is do what we had to do way back 50 years ago, explain to somebody why you'd want to come to a college that looks a little bit different, maybe a lot different, but it's still worth going to. And what we have to offer now still are good faculty, good programs, alumni who have demonstrated that they've learned from Hampshire and have been successful at what they do, so that when you come through Hampshire College, you can expect that you're going to be successful too at what you choose to do, and then be able to change as circumstances change.